Welcome to the Hot Seat. I'm your host, Maggy Martinez. Today, across Georgia, families are struggling with the rising cost of living. Homeowners insurance premiums continue to climb. Car insurance rates are stretching families' monthly budget. Small businesses are paying more to protect their investments. And many Georgians are asking one simple question: who is protecting the consumer? Today, we examine the office responsible for regulating Georgia's insurance industry, protecting policyholders, ensuring fair treatment for consumers, and promoting fire safety throughout our state. Joining us today is Keisha Waites, the Democratic nominee for Georgia Insurance and Safety Fire Commissioner. Our guest has dedicated years to public service, serving in the Georgia House of Representatives and later on the Atlanta City Council, advocating for working families and local communities. She now seeks to bring that experience to a statewide office as Georgia's next insurance safety fire commissioner. So let's dive in.
Present Starbound Studios starring Maggy Martinez and the Hot Seat Interview. Y ahora con ustedes, Maggy Martinez en Caliente.
Well, here she is, Keisha Waites. She's running for Georgia Insurance and Safety Fire Commissioner. Welcome, Keisha, to the hot seat.
It is a pleasure to be with you, Maggie. It was really wonderful to see you in Savannah at the convention.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We had a wonderful time over there and seeing all the candidates and the state delegates. That was an awesome experience. Keisha, homeowners and car insurance premium has increased drastically across Georgia over the last several years. What will you do the first year to bring home and auto insurance rates down for Georgia families?
Well, my first goal within that first year is simply this, and that is to ensure that Georgia families see real relief, Maggie. You may recall when we had the California wildfires that many families lost their homes. So we've seen the extremism when we don't have protection for our consumers. Several hurricanes hit the state of Florida, in which many insurance companies left the state and did not pay premiums. And so we want to make sure that there's a balanced system, that insurance companies don't feel the need to bail out, but there is a partnership that benefits actual consumers.
Excellent. Well, as you know, I wrote a book. It's called The Secrets of Campaigning, So You Think You Could Run. It's available on Amazon. It's important because this is 40 years of experience running campaigns, and as a state legislature, as a former state legislature too. Buy it for yourself, buy it for your daughters to develop leadership. Buy it for a candidate that is running for office so they know exactly what to do step by step. It's available on Amazon. And this helps the show to continue the conversation because it's important. I want to say a big thank to AJ Jane. He sent a huge donation to the hot seat to buy equipment. We bought a lot of equipment. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, AJ Jane, for that donation. And we really spend it wisely. Also, if you want to make a donation, visit starboundpr.com and make a donation because that's help what, Keisha?
That helps to elect Democrats and people who truly care about consumers. And so join me, please, in purchasing the book as well.
Yeah, thank you. Well, as you know, it's important, right? Well, many Georgians believe companies continue to raise premiums. This is something that really is affecting everyone. Should insurance companies require to publicly justify significant rates increase?
Well, absolutely. I mean, certainly insurance companies are in business to make money. We understand that. I can tell you this personally. For the same fee that I am paying, the $250 that I pay right now, 3 years ago, I actually had full coverage on my vehicle. Now I only have liability. Thank God I don't have an actual note on that vehicle, or I wouldn't be able to do that. I will be required to have full coverage. But at the end of the day, I would like to create a rate transparency dashboard. And what this does is this provides consumers with real information regarding rate increases. There are going to be times when rates are going to need to be increased, but we must justify that to the consumer.
That's right. That needs to be done.
Absolutely.
Because right now it's like we are giving them a blank
Carte blanche.
Yep, and do whatever they want. Well, authority does the Georgia Insurance Commission have to reject or challenge excessive insurance rates increase? How will you use that authority differently from the previous commissioner, which, he tried to run for governor or something like that?
Well, he actually signed up to run for U.S. Senate, which is interesting. But I think it's important that we use this opportunity to inform consumers. The Insurance Commission of Georgia has the constitutional authority to review, to challenge, and reject rate filings that are excessive, that are inadequate, and unfairly discriminatory. That is his constitutional authority provided by the General Assembly.
But they're not doing it.
They're not doing it. So unlike the previous administrations, I will use that authority aggressively and consistently to expand an actual review capacity and conduct independent audits of questionable filings and challenge insurers who attempt to push back through unjustified rate increases. I will also strengthen enforcement against companies that fail to comply with Georgia's rate review laws. My approach will be simple. If there is a rate increase that cannot be fully justified, we will require data, and if not, it will not be approved.
Excellent. This is what I'm talking about. We are talking today with Keisha Waites. She's the Democratic nominee for the Office of Insurance Commissioner and Fire Safety. And this is the show that you really have to listen because why? Insurance really affects our everyday life in all sense. And really, this needs to be done.
May I add something, Maggie, that I think is very important? There are many consumers that I'm talking to around the state of Georgia who do not believe that they're impacted by this conversation. If you do not own a home, you're impacted by this conversation because you may have health insurance, you may have rental insurance, you may have automobile insurance. There is no aspect of your life that's not impacted by this office.
That's right. Well, legislation intended to stabilize insurance in Georgia caused by reforming Georgia's civil justice system. Do you believe those reforms will result in lower homeowners and car insurance rates?
Well, it's interesting because when you talk to the pundits on this issue, they're pretty much split regarding this argument. So supporters of Georgia's civil justice reform argued that it would actually reduce litigation costs and ultimately lower premiums. However, the critics are saying that these reforms primarily benefit the insurance and may limit the rights of injured Georgians. And so that's one of the reasons that we have to make sure that we look at this very closely. Secondly, as the next insurance commissioner, my role is not to take sides, but instead to ensure that the insurers receive financial benefits from those reforms and those savings be passed on to the actual consumers. I will also monitor those claims, those trends, litigation costs, as well as profitability to determine whether the reforms are producing good results and the promises that they intended to produce. Secondly, if they are not, we will require insurance holders to be accountable and demand rate adjustments that reflect the actual savings to consumers.
As insurance commissioner, will you help make companies accountable of what they do to provide relief to the Georgia consumers?
Well, Maggie, I don't think anyone's going to come in here and say that they're not going to perform the intent of the position. The reality is that there are a number of factors that impact this conversation. So, yes, I will require insurers to demonstrate why the savings from the civil justice reforms are not being reflected in the rates. And secondly, when you ask for a rate increase, we will require data that justifies those rate increases so we don't have situations like what happened in California or insurance companies pulling out of places like Florida.
Well, recent hurricanes, tornadoes, and severe storms have caused insurance premiums to rise throughout not only in Georgia to the southeast. How can Georgia protect homeowners from skyrocketing rates while insurance company remain financially stable?
That is a great question. One of the reasons that insurance companies are indicating that our homeowners insurance premiums are increasing is because of these storms, wildfires that hit California, the number of tornadoes that we've seen throughout the Southeast. However, Georgia must balance affordability with the insurer regarding stability. I will modernize the catastrophic modeling, expand mitigation credits for homeowners who strengthen their roofs and their structures, and work with local governments to improve building standards. I will also explore a state supported reassurance backup to help stabilize the market during extreme weather cycles where you've had a number of situations such as hail damage. A number of insurance companies paid out a lot of claims because a number of homeowners filed claims regarding hail damage. That impacts our rates. And lastly, my goal is to keep coverage available and affordable while ensuring that insurers remain financially strong enough to pay, that insurance companies remain financially strong enough to pay claims when damages or major disasters occur.
Well, many homeowners say that they're being dropped or denied policy renewals. That's also happening in health because they live in areas considering high risk. Should insurance company be allowed to do this, and what protection will you support for homeowners?
It is my goal to work with the General Assembly and the next governor of Georgia, whomever that is, to ensure that we cannot use a zip code or a credit score to discriminate against consumers. This should be illegal, and that is actually called a form of redlining. And so I believe, regardless of where you live in the state of Georgia, your rate should be based upon your habits and how you behave. For example, my mom actually is 77 years of age. She lives in Conyers, Georgia. Her driving record is not that great. Her insurance is half of what I pay. I have no citations. I have no tickets, but I live in the city of Atlanta, which is considered high risk. My insurance is double what my mother is paying, and I'm 53 years of age with 0 tickets. That should not be happening. So lastly, homeowners should not lose coverage based on the zip codes, while insurers must manage that risk. Blanket renewals and unfair destabilization hurt everyone. I will work to enforce stronger fair access standards and ensure that those justifications and those renewals benefit consumers.
Well, small businesses, they're suffering the consequences of all this. They're the backbone of Georgia's economy. What policy will you implement to help small businesses obtain affordable insurance coverage? Because sometimes they compare small business with the big businesses. That doesn't make sense.
It's a great question. And I would like to segue, if I could get your permission. I think it's extremely important to talk about this. People believe, or there is a broad blanket statement that Democrats are not pro-business. That is not true. We're pro-consumer and pro-family first. We believe that we put families before profits, but we are pro-business people. So I believe, just as you've already said that small businesses are the backbone of our economy, I will streamline the process for commercial filings. I will expand competitive competition for small businesses and reduce the administrative barriers that drive up costs and make it difficult to do business in the state of Georgia. That, in fact, will lower rates. Secondly, I will work with startups in rural communities. My office will create a small business insurance assistance program, and we can do that by using the insurance companies to help fund this project, to help consumers compare plans, understand rate coverage, and avoid predatory practices. Affordable insurance is what keeps Georgia strong. When you look at your health insurance plans, you may be able to see that all of the providers are there and you can see what coverage they can get. We need something like this for small business owners as well.
Well, insurance commissioner also serve as the Georgia Fire Safety Commissioner. What are your priorities for improving fire prevention emergency preparedness, especially what's happening with all these wildfires, and support the firefighters throughout Georgia?
It's a great question. And, I'm coming from the actual disaster recovery industry where I spent 10 years serving for the federal government, working with communities that had been impacted by natural disasters. So a lot of people don't notice, and I thank you for bringing this up. The insurance commissioner serves in a dual role. The insurance commissioner is also the fire and safety commissioner for the state of Georgia. So, a couple of things. I will work to expand statewide fire prevention education. I will work to modernize inspection standards, and this includes elevators, strengthening the enforcement of building and fire safety codes. I will also invest in firefighter training, mental health support, and modernize equipment specifically in rural communities where there is a need the most. Well, a lot of them actually have volunteer fire departments. Lastly, I will work to improve coordination during emergencies by expanding communication systems and statewide response planning. Protecting Georgians means ensuring that firefighters have the tools and the resources that they need to support our individual communities.
Well, we are talking with Keisha Waites, Democratic nominee for Georgia Insurance Commissioner and Safety Fire Commissioner. It's important that you know this office do both things. So, and Keisha brings to the table not only her experience, but her educational background and in policy. And this is so important because sometimes we say, oh, but that person, it will do. Well, it will do a lot because that person is prepared with the experience that they need to bring to the table, but also their educational background.
Maggie, I'd love to segue and speak to that. I'm asked all the time, well, what do you know about insurance, Keisha? Why do you think you're the perfect person for this job? I think I'm the only person for this job. I am super proud of the fact that I served 3 terms in the Georgia House of Representatives, where I have relationships statewide all over the state of Georgia. You're going to need legislative support to advance any issue that you're going to tackle in this particular role. Secondly, I served on the Atlanta City Council, where we dealt with a number of issues that directly impact consumers, specifically surrounding insurance. And then lastly, Maggie, like you, I am a homeowner. I have seen my homeowners' insurance rates double. I drive and operate an automobile where I haven't seen those increased coverages for insurance coverage in the state of Georgia, whereas I have a great driving record. And then lastly, I have health insurance. And so I've seen those premiums go up with Kaiser. And so that cost is being passed on to the everyday consumer. So I am feeling that same pain that Georgia families are feeling.
Everybody's feeling the pain, that's for sure. Well, technology, artificial intelligence, the cybercrime are changing insurance industry. How should Georgia prepare for this new risk while protecting consumers' privacy and personal information? Because this is big.
Well, we've seen data breaches at every single level, whether this is through banking and financial institutions. And also, too, I think it's important to note that the Insurance Commission of Georgia actually regulates financial services industries, which a lot of people don't know.
A lot of people don't know.
So we'll get into that conversation a little bit later. But as you've indicated, technology and cyber crimes are on the rise. So I will work with the insurance companies to adopt strong cybersecurity standards, safeguard their personal data, and disclose how artificial intelligence is being used in underwriting, insurance claims, and in all decision making. I will also establish a cyber risk and AI oversight unit. And what that does is it ensures that the algorithms do not discriminate against vulnerable communities, against rural communities, and also Georgia must embrace innovation while protecting families and businesses from digital risk.
Excelente. Well, consumer often complains about delays in claims, denied coverage, and poor customer service. And I have my own experience when somebody, a driver hit my van and destroyed all the back. And then they pay, all the medical to fix the van. But a lot of people don't know that after they pay all that, you can request the value of your vehicle. And a lot of people don't know that. Yeah, a lot of people don't know
This
that.
is great.
Yeah.
I love that we're talking about this on the show because I know I was not aware of this. And so if we could highlight that again at the end of the show to, give this information to the everyday consumer, this is huge.
Yeah, that's excellent. Well, what reforms would you implement to ensure that insurance companies respond fairly and promptly to policyholder and be accountable, but also be open to
Hmm.
tell people
Hmm.
what their rights are?
Hmm.
Because you,
Hmm.
you could tell they stay quiet with certain things.
So I want to go back to a statement that I made earlier. I don't believe that the insurance commissioner's job is to be more of a burden to the insurance companies. I don't believe that that role is adversarial by any means. I believe that it can be a partnership where we can benefit consumers and drive down rates. However, we must enforce strict timelines for claims processing to increase and also increase the penalties for unjustified delays. There has to be a timeline where a claim should be paid. And if we miss that timeline, there should be justification and a reason, meaning we need more information, we need medical records, things of that nature. And then lastly, we must require insurers to maintain adequate staffing for customer service. When you make a phone call to your insurer or your insurance company, you should be able to get someone on the phone. You should not have unnecessary delays as it relates to a denial. And then lastly, I will also create a claims performance scorecard so
Excellent.
consumers can see how insurance companies treat their policyholders. Also, my administration will put a stop to first by ensuring that every Georgian receives fair, timely, and transparent claims and put a stop to these delays and denials.
Well, throughout your public career, you have served in elected office, but also faced public
Mhm.
criticism and ethics investigation. And this is something that you need to clarify because people need to understand why this happened. Why should Georgia voters trust you
Mhm.
over seeing one of the state's most important regulatory agency?
Mhm.
And what lesson have you learned from those experiences?
Mhm. Maggie, I really appreciate you taking the time to bring this question up today. I have had an ethics complaint filed against me. Unfortunately, this happened at the hands of someone that worked on my campaign team
Oh,
that
wow.
we parted ways. That situation has been very painful for many, many reasons. This person actually purchased my domain name and used my domain name to put information out regarding an ethics complaint that this person actually filed. And the complaint was as it relates to a newsletter that I produced when I prepared to leave the city of Atlanta to run for higher office. That newsletter was pre approved by the city council prior to my leaving. I had a purchase order agreement before I left, and those funds were allocated by the city of Atlanta for a newsletter, which all members of the city council are allowed to produce. This person has filed ethics complaints with the city of Atlanta. This person has filed ethics complaints with the state of Georgia, and this person has also used my personal information to exploit things that he knew was not true. Now, I will tell you this as it relates to filing my disclosures late. That is something that I made a mistake and that I should have done on time.
Everybody can make a mistake.
But I can tell you this. My donors were threatened for giving to my campaign. So I made the decision to file late because many of them wouldn't give to my campaign because they were afraid of showing up on my disclosures because they would be discriminated against or not have the opportunity to do business with the city of Atlanta or do business with the state of Georgia. Maggie, we must get money out of campaigns because the reality is people are afraid to give to good candidates for fear that the incumbents will come against them. So, my former staffer, a friend and a former colleague, exploited this loophole against me and filed these complaints against me, knowing why we filed those disclosures in a way that was delayed and not timely. And for that, I am not I'm fully responsible for that. And that's not something that I'm happy about. But there has never, Maggie, ever been a situation of misconduct, fraud, or any fiduciary practice that I have been engaged in.
It's important that you clarify that for the record.
Absolutely. And that is throughout my decade of service to the people of Georgia.
Yes,
Thank
that's
you for the
good.
question.
Yes. If you are elected Georgia next insurance commissioner, what measurement accomplishment should voters expect during your first 4 years? In other words, what would be all that work that you're going to bring to the Georgia?
It's
to
a great
Georgia?
question. So, the idea somehow that we're going to magically cut costs to voters 50%, I think is not very realistic. I think we know we're going to continue to see an increase in storm coverage, weather storms and bad weather. We're going to continue to see challenges in terms of inflation in our country. But what I can commit to you is this. We will investigate when there is a denial. We will investigate when there is a delayed claim. We will work to put out processes and procedures and scorecards so that you can make informed decisions that benefit your family. And then lastly, we will slow premium growth, increase competition in the state of Georgia, and also enact stronger consumer protections that protect all Georgia families.
Excelente. Can you make a commitment to the people of Georgia that if insurance company continue raising premiums without justification, will you use legal authority of your office to challenge those increase and look at the camera and tell the people why they should vote for you?
Absolutely. Two reasons. One, I thank you for this opportunity to join you and have this important conversation. A couple of reasons why Georgians should vote for me. Not because I'm a Georgia peach and that I'm from Georgia, but because I have the legislative and policy experience to move the conversation forward. Lastly, I have intimate relationships with legislators throughout the state of Georgia that will be necessary to make the changes that will actually protect consumers. And then lastly, we are in a situation now where families are having to make difficult choices as it relates to their finances. And we have seen what the last 4 years has given Georgians. We have not had the protections. We have not had the consumer protections necessary to protect veterans, to protect seniors and working families from these rate hikes. So whether you own a vehicle, whether you own your home, or whether you're struggling with rising health costs, it is my job, and I've taken on that responsibility to ensure that Georgians get relief. And so, absolutely, I stand behind that, and I'm asking every Georgian to come out in this particular race, vote the entire ticket, vote down ballot, so that we can make sure that we provide the protection that Georgians need.
Well, in this show, we always have a question that is not on paper. Do you believe enough consumers are informed about their rights regarding PMI cancellation? Can we educate the Georgia people about this?
I think that's a phenomenal question. Many people don't know this, but when you have a conventional home loan, you're required to obtain PMI, which is private mortgage insurance, if your loan to value exceeds 80%. However, many consumers are not aware, Maggie, that once your loan is below the 80% LTV, a loan to value threshold, you're no longer required to pay private mortgage insurance. This could save consumers thousands of dollars. The average PMI or mortgage insurance rate is about $150 a month.
A month?
So when you take that and you divide it by 12 over a period of time, if you've been in your home for 10 years, that can rack up a huge bill, and that could be a cost savings to families in the thousands of dollars. So check to see what your loan to value rate is. If it's below the 80% threshold, you're no longer required to pay private mortgage insurance if you have a conventional loan. If you have FHA loan, it will be in place throughout the duration and life of the loan. So call your lender, find out what your rights are, ask the right questions, and if you are below the LTV rate of 80%, please reach out to cancel your private mortgage insurance.
And any money that comes in this day is good money because families are struggling. Well, I wanted to say thank you, Keisha, for coming to the show. It has been very enlightening and informative. The people out there need to know that you are running for this position. A lot of people don't know yet, so it's important that we share this show and tell people that Keisha is the Democratic nominee for the Georgia Insurance Safety Fire Commission. Thank you for coming to the hot seat.
Thank you so much. Over the weekend in Savannah, we had the opportunity to have the convention where former Mayor Les Bottoms accepted the nomination for governor. And all of the down ballot candidates, we also accepted that nomination. It was one of the most amazing opportunities. I certainly thank Georgia voters for your trust, for your confidence, and for the opportunity to represent the great state of Georgia on the Democratic ticket. And I certainly ask for your vote and your trust again on November 3rd. Early advance voting will happen in October. Maggie, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for opening up the studio. The technology is amazing. And I look forward to coming back before early advance voting and continuing this conversation.
We have to inform the people who are the candidates that are running out there. And with the plethora of experience that you bring to the table will be amazing for you to direct this office. I know you're going to do a great job because of that experience. Well, to our viewers, thank you for tuning in on the Hot Seat Interview. Make sure you always are informed who are the candidates that are running for office and what they bring to the table and how all these policies and platforms and ideas will help you and your family. This is Maggy Martinez, the Hot Seat Interview. Until next time.